Welcome to Grow My Etsy Shop podcast, the drips of knowledge you need to start growing. Hey, welcome. So today's episode, we're going to be talking about this sentence. I'm dropping in sales. I'm dropping in views. I'm down where I was last year. That sentence. We're going to talk about that today. So for those who know, I have this growth society that I just launched this month. And the whole thing was, I was like, I'm going to let in a small group of people and we're just going to kind of work together in this group. And I'm going to figure out what I'm trying to figure out is the best way to create a environment that Etsy shops want to come into and grow together. And so I brought these people in and we've been working. So one of the things I did is I said, hey, I'm going to go live in this group. And when I do, the first one on, I'll walk through your shop and everyone else, I'll have the recording for you. You guys can all watch it. I'll cut it up into pieces so you can watch it in pieces, or you can watch the whole thing live, or you can watch the whole thing live. Like you could just be on the call and watch me do it. So I went live, somebody jumped on, and this is sentence that I started this podcast with was literally what they said. They were like, hey, this is my concern. I'm down. I'm showing some numbers that are concerning to me. I just want to have someone look through this and tell me what they think. So I said, great, let's do it. So I'm going to walk through some of the steps that I did. And so that way you can sort of do this yourself or look at your own Etsy shops with this kind of lens on. So this is something we do from a growth marketing standpoint as well. When someone comes to us, they're not always saying I'm down, but they're just saying I want to grow. And so we need to first kind of do our research to see where are we and what can we do to improve, or where do we see the opportunity that growth can come in the quickest. So first thing I did is I just do a quick interview. I look over the numbers as a whole and confirm that what she's saying is true. So are we seeing a dip in numbers? Are we seeing a dip in traffic? And Etsy makes this super easy. You hit that little switch that says compare year over year, and there you go. You can see exactly what's going on. So yes, I would say she had definitely seen a dip, but there was some really big months that didn't quite compare to, or that were better than the year before, and then some months that drew out kind of the summer that were worse than her summer before. So I do predict if she was to currently go the direction she's going, she would have less income this year than she did the year before. So that's enough for us to say, well, then let's make some tweak. Is it on fire? Oh my gosh, what the heck? The whole thing's come to a dead stop. No. It's just concerning. So let's take a look. So once I confirm, okay, this is our issue, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, well, what changed in your life? Because last year you made this much money. I think it was like 230,000 was her gross. She's looking like she's going to project to about 2,000 this year by the skin of her teeth. So we're down 30,000. Let's figure it out. She, as we were chit-chatting back and forth, I asked the question, so, are you adding as much products? Are you as aggressive as, well, no, I'm not adding as much or doing as much last year. I'm kind of running with the things that sold well last year, which is super common and is one of those strategies that can sort of either shoot you in the foot or be wonderful, because developing new products all the time is exhausting and can also put you in sort of a cycle of throwing spaghetti against the wall. And so a lot of times you'll have things that are successful and you're like, okay, perfect. I want to see this same success next year. So I'm just going to run the same products next year. And I've obviously learned and streamlined my process, so I think I can do it so much smoother and I could sell more. And then what happens is we don't quite sell as much as we did the year before, and we scratch our heads and say, well, what the heck happened? And there's a few things that can take place here. One is Etsy works off of, because keep in mind, there's always people last year's version of yourself in this year, meaning you were the person that was hustling, trying new things, throwing the spaghetti, finding the winner, scaling the winner. And then this year you came back with that one winner and are like, let's run it back, baby. When there's a whole nother year generation of Etsy shop sellers who were coming in saying, we're doing the hustling, we're throwing the spaghetti, we're trying the things, we're spending on ads, like we're doing all the work to try to get something noticed here. And so if you get bumped back in that process, you'll feel it. You'll feel a dip and you won't quite sell as much. Another thing that can take place is sometimes something you're selling is on trend, or at least according to Etsy is on trend. So they're promoting you more because of the trend that you are, and they see a decrease in that trend or that search volume, and so they don't promote you in inspirational keywords as much. And so when you were once getting more inspirational keywords, you weren't getting it as much. There's so many different reasons why something like this would take place. I would say 90% of the time, unless Etsy does a big update that kind of threw a wrench into something, it's just people making decisions, and that the decision process isn't favoring you as much as it once did. And that's a good way, and it's a healthy way to look at it. Because instead of us shaking our fist at Etsy and saying, oh, how dare you, if you only showed me more, I would, instead we turn it to, okay, actionable steps that I can take to help people make the decision to purchase from me instead of other people. And that's what we want our brain to be working towards. So with this individual, I was able to hear her say, like, no, I'm kind of in that year or that phase of my life where I've had a lot of success. I'm making over $200,000 a year, and I'm kind of just doing what I'm doing, fulfilling orders, and this is what's working for me, which again is a great way to do business, because if you have products that people are buying and buying and buying, then you can get really good at making the product. You have money to invest back into your business, and this is a good way to beat your competition, is just out reviewing them, having a superior product, having more favor from Etsy. It's all wonderful. It's just that when we start to see this kind of creep in is when we need to have this conversation with ourselves. So check. She's kind of in a year of fulfillment, less than a year of creation. Perfect. The next question I say, she brings it up. She says, well, in January I was swamped, so I increased my price about 20%. Okay. So I write down on a little piece of paper. We're in a fulfillment year. We've increased our price by 20%. I then look at her traffic, and I see that she's spending less in ads. I can see that she's getting less ad traffic. So I said, how much did you drop your budget? She said about 20 to 25%. So I said, all right, and then she brought up one more thing. She said, hey, I used to do really well on Pinterest. I paid $600 a month to have someone run Pinterest for me. And then when I got a little bit slower, I ended up cutting that person. So I said, all right, last year, let me make sure I got this right. You were 20% cheaper, spending 20% more in ads, and had a social media person running your Pinterest. She said, yes. Okay. And added more products. I said, this year you've added less products. You're spending 20% less in ads. You've had a 20% increase in profit, and you're not doing any Pinterest or social media. Correct. I said, okay, well, if we're going to be down roughly about 30,000, this sort of checks out. Like, this makes sense to me. But let's put that on the shelf. So and my exact words to her were, in this scenario, I just want to make sure we're not comparing apples to apples. We're not just saying, what happened, Etsy? Curse you, Etsy. But we need to see that it's not apples to apples, what we're doing. So, okay, now let's put that on the shelf, because what a terrible phone call that would be if I say, well, next. So I said, no, let's see what we can do. Let's see what's out there. So the first thing I do is I look at traffic source, and I see what are people searching and clicking on to come into her store. And that gives me an idea of what Etsy is promoting her under. So I can see those words. And what I was doing as I was going through her words is I was noticing that a lot of people were describing I'm just going to say what she sells. She sells wreaths, things you hang on your door. And a lot of people were searching for wreaths. Now I know for a fact that wreaths are seasonal. They're holiday themed. You can have a Halloween wreath. You can have a Thanksgiving wreath. You can have a 4th of July wreath. You can have an Easter wreath. Like, these are all, they're themed this way. Yet I was seeing a majority of her traffic being like front door or like a certain flower that was found in the wreath, which is great to be found under. Again, she's a successful Etsy shop. So people who are searching for particular flowers or looking for this front door, she's obviously has presence. Etsy likes her. Etsy's promoting her. She's getting sales. So, but what I'm noticing is I'm not seeing what I believe traffic would be coming from, which is someone searching for more holiday themed or specific type of wreath that would follow a season. So I jump into her store, and one of the first things I notice is that her categories are just like one word. So like fall, winter, that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, first things first, we need to adjust your categories to tell Etsy what it is that you're selling. So these are Christmas wreaths. These are Halloween wreaths. These are fall wreaths, not just fall, winter, whatever. I then jump into those categories and I look at the listings. Maybe she's got about 7 wreaths in that category. And I can see that none of them are hitting, well, not none of them, very few are actually hitting the season that these wreaths are for. And so I need to see, if it's a fall wreath, I need to see every word possible for fall, not in one listing, but in the listings that you have that are under the fall wreath category of your store. So I need to see autumn, I need to see fall, I need to see Thanksgiving, I need to see all of those things in these listings. And so this was kind of the advices, more than one advices. This was the advice that I was giving her, was to say, look, I need you to sell, if I'm going on to Etsy and I type in wreath for my front door and a Halloween wreath pops up, is this what I wanted? No. I just wanted, maybe. I want to type in seasonal things and see seasonal results. Because what happens is when she has such inspirational keywords and then she has 90 something wreaths, Etsy's really going to show one wreath that's going to fall under that. And so in her mind, she's saying, well, this is my best selling wreath. And the answer is no, that's the wreath that Etsy's promoting the most. Therefore, it's your best selling wreath. That doesn't mean it is your most popular. That doesn't mean it is your best. That doesn't mean it's the most evergreen one that you have. It's just the one that Etsy's promoting. So if we can take the idea that Etsy's promoting you under wreath with this particular wreath, what if we expand that out to people who are, here's the best way I can explain it. You have the 3 levels. Level 1 being someone searching for a wreath. Number 2 being someone searching for a seasonal wreath. Number 3 being people searching for a certain flower or a certain type of wreath. So if someone's searching for a flower or type of wreath, that's a very detailed keyword. They know what they're going to buy. You're probably going to convert them and do great. If someone's just searching for wreath, Etsy is going to show them all different types of wreaths. And you happen to have a lot of different types of wreaths. So Etsy is going to show you in those searches your different types of wreaths. And they're going to go, oh, this one seems to do the best when someone searches for just the generic term of wreath. And so that's the product that sits there. The middle one is where a lot of traffic comes in and you can win those keywords, especially if you have inspirational keywords. And that is by hitting more seasonal or directly for what someone, for example, if I'm searching for a holiday wreath or I'm searching for more of an Easter wreath, that I have a category in my store that's Easter wreath that has several Easter wreaths, that I use different keywords that people would be searching for Easter wreaths under, or Easter decor, Easter front door, Easter patio, that kind of stuff that they would seem like, oh, that's going to be perfect on my patio or on my porch. I guess this wouldn't be a porch, on my front porch. And so you think this way to say, how can I kind of hit those middle keywords, which is not as detailed but not as broad, and that's usually when, especially in something like this, where it's seasonal. And then when you put that brain on that I'm hitting these seasonal things, this is when you start to just lay out the year and you say, when are people going to buy wreaths? Well, they're going to probably buy them every time they are changing their holiday or their home decor or putting something up. They're probably going to be doing this. And so am I hitting that person at that time? So what I want to see from her store is spikes during every seasonal change that someone's decorations are going up. That could be all the way from 4th of July to Christmas to New Year to winter to summer to the whole thing. Okay. I would say that the reason she was doing so well in January is it looked like the wreath that was selling the best was a really great winter wreath. And so I think that's the one that's being promoted. And so it worked well in the season. Okay. The last thing I did was go through her ad account. The ad account is going to show me where Etsy is actually promoting her. So keep in mind, your Etsy stats are when people click. So you might be found under way more keywords than you thought you were. An ad account is going to show you that. So I go into the ad account. I look at what she's doing, and she actually has it done perfectly, which I really appreciate. A lot of people will turn on all of their listings or tons of listings. I understand the logic behind it. It's to say, look, Etsy's just going to play around with all my stuff and promote what they think is going to work best, and then yada, yada, yada. The thing is, you just can't manage it yourself. You're putting all of it, all your trust into Etsy. So if it's working, great. If it's not working, there's not much you can do about it. So when you have depending on your price point or how many products you have, but we're in her price point where wreaths can be somewhere between, $100 to $300. Yeah, and she has 100 products. I want 6. I want 6. So I think that's exactly what I had. I think she had 7 or something like that. So I'm able to go in there, and now I can make logical decisions because this isn't an overwhelming amount of data that I have to look at. It's just these 7 things that we just need to get profitable. So I jump in, I look at her stuff, and I see the product that's taking the most spend in the ad account is getting a 3.4% click-through rate. Now, for those running ads, it's not very often you're going to see a 3.4% click-through rate. Me personally, I like I don't like a 1.4. I am at 1.4. I'm satisfied. I'm like, this is good enough. When I start getting into 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, I'm happy. When I'm past 2 on my click-through rate, I'm scaling. 3.4? I'm at the moon. Yeah, I was like, oh, that is, especially at such a, keep in mind, at the highest price, so she's paying about $25 a day, seeing a 3.4% click-through rate in her most spend ad set. So Etsy, unfortunately, it's called CBO. It's Campaign Optimization Budget. It's when an ad platform, you give it a sum and it puts the money where it thinks it will perform best. So, for example, if you have 7 ad sets, it's going to dilute that, not evenly, that $25. It's just going to spend it based on where it thinks it's going to get the best performance. CBO. There's your technical marketing terms that you learned today. I wish, with all my heart, I genuinely believe if Etsy just said, hey, Jared, we love your podcast. Thanks, Etsy. What do you want? You get one thing to the people. What is it? I would say I want to be able to control the money that is spent per product. That's what I would want. I think if I had the genie, my number one wish, the first thing would not be to get out of the cave like Aladdin, but instead give me personalized selection, create ad sets. Oh, we could go to the moon if we could do that. Okay, back to this. So 3.4, hey-o, I jump in, looking at her stuff, and the conversion rate is not high on this 3.4, but it's dead on with, so for example, it's like people searching for wreaths and front door wreath and stuff like that. So I'm like, this is a great keyword. This is a good product. It isn't converting as well. Now, she had a 6 ROAS. So some of you are like, but her profit isn't as big as some of you guys out there. And so she needs to be around a 9 ROAS to be in a scaling spot. So 6 is like she's making money. She's just not making a lot of money. 9 would be in a spot where we're like, yes, we can scale this. So I look at that 3.4 and I'm like, what's going on here? Why aren't people doing this? So one of the first questions I ask her is I say, is the price that's on the product the same price they get when they check out? And her answer is no. I'm going to share with you exactly what I shared with her. This isn't the worst thing. I've seen this strategy work all the time. It's just we have to watch the price gap. What we don't want to do is have people clicking, because all you're doing is attracting someone who wants, you're attracting budget buyers. And if you're like, well, I sell a more premium product, or my product is better than most of the budget products, then you're just generating clicks of budget buyers and losing the purchase. And so all we're learning is Etsy's just like, this isn't working. And so it can hurt our SEO. However, as long as it's not a huge gap, I've seen this strategy work pretty well and would almost recommend it. I'm almost to a point where I'm like, hey, everybody should be doing this because I've seen it work that much. Okay, so I say to her, what's the price points? She says, well, my smallest version is $149. Her medium version is $200. So $149, yeah, $199. And then her biggest version is $299. I think that's it. So yeah, I gotta get the 99s out of here. It was $150, $200, $300. So right off the bat, what do we hear? We hear you have the small, which was, I don't remember the amount of inches. And then for a couple more inches or a bigger version of it, you're getting the 150, and then you have this really big version that's 300. So the advice that I gave, and this is experimental advice. This wasn't like, oh, hole-in-one advice. This is like, hey, let's give this a shot. And so I just want you to hear kind of what's going on here. As I said, we're getting people clicking in on the 149, and I did ask her. I said, what's the picture on the front? She said, well, it's the biggest version is the one I have on the front. So the picture is this big wreath, and then you click on it and, showing a 150 price tag, you then click on it. It's like, actually, that's for the smallest version. So that's where we can kind of get into trouble here. Not into trouble, but you know what I mean. Hot water. So I said, this is what we're going to do. Let's just make it a really obvious choice. Let's just make it really, really obvious. So let's keep the price at 150 because we know that's getting clicks, but let's try to get that second one as close as we can to that 150 mark and see if that works for us. Because before you're like, whoa, Jared, what are we doing here? We went through the profit of it, and she makes the profit goes up the bigger the wreath is. And so I said, instead of trying to, because keep in mind, she increased her price by 20%, right? At the beginning of this year. So I said, look, let's just do that middle one. Let's decrease the price a bit so it stays closer to that 150. I think we decided at like 179, I think is what we did. So instead of being 200, or 189. I think it was 189. Let's bring it to this 189 and then potentially even move up that price from 149 to 155 or something like that. And so now we have a much closer, very simple upgrade that you can make. So when you click on it, you're like, oh, it's 150. Actually, it's only if we click on it at 155 and then it goes up to 185, that's not as big as a jump from 149 to 199. That's a $50 jump. So it brings our gap a little bit closer. So we're just trying to bring that and make it the choice really simple. So instead of them saying, oh, can I get away with the smaller one or whatever? It's like, dude, for an extra whatever, I can get the bigger one. I'm in. And so as long as we make that jump, that gap, it makes sense. It's there. I think what we can do is make this, because again, the ad account is spending. It has a high click-through rate. It's just not converting. So we're just working on that conversion to say, what if we made a no-brainer, totally the middle one, checkout easy. Then from there, we can help. I don't want to confuse everyone here. If they're coming in at 150 and then want the 200 version or the 300 version, that's a big commitment. If they come in at 155 and want a 185, that's not a big commitment. So we don't want to attract budget buyers, but we do want to nudge all buyers to where we want them to go. This is that nudge technique. Okay, that's today's episode. If you like the idea of this group, you could put your name on a form that I'll put down below. I do it I'm opening it in sections, and so currently it's not open, but I will be opening it in sections. And so if you would just want to be on a wave and catch those emails when they come out to say, hey, this thing's open, you can sign up below. Okay, guys, till next week. Oh, I have a post-production question here. If you use that software that I recommended last week, the one that makes it so that it has an inventory that's low, I'd be curious on your thoughts on it. I've never used it. I just think it sounds like a good idea on paper, but I'd like to know if it's a good idea. And so anyone who's using it or anything like that, if you are in my group, let me know. If you are not, I think maybe the Facebook group would be a good place to do it. I'll look out for it on the Facebook group. And just let me know what your thoughts are. You seen anything? Let me know. Okay, thanks guys.